"Daughter, come here. Alone. Now." When your father uses the same tone he reserved for catching you sneaking in at 2 a.m. during high school, someone's about to get financially destroyed. I left my yoga class mid-downward dog in Boulder, Colorado. Yes, I'm that person who unironically says namaste, and drove to my parents' house running through a mental checklist of catastrophes. Terminal illness? Mom's having an affair? They're moving to Florida and becoming those people? None of my scenarios included, your husband owes me $500,000 and I'm about to ruin his life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. My name's Blythe, I'm 31, and I've been married to Beckett for 4 years. 4 years of what I thought was a pretty solid marriage. We did couples yoga, had Sunday brunch rituals, posted coordinated Halloween costumes on Instagram like proper millennials. Beckett's a consultant, or at least that's what he tells people at dinner parties. More accurately, he runs a startup consultancy that mostly consists of him having lunch meetings and talking about disrupting verticals. My father, Victor, is the CEO of a construction company worth about $50 million. He's the kind of man who wears suits to backyard barbecues and reads the Wall Street Journal with his morning coffee like it's scripture. When I brought Beckett home 5 years ago, Dad took one look at him and said, "He's got too many teeth," which is Dad speak for, "This guy's a con artist with good hair." I ignored the warnings. After years of dating guys who thought fine dining meant Olive Garden and investment strategy meant buying lottery tickets, Beckett seemed like the whole package. Handsome, charming, ambitious, the kind of guy who remembers your coffee order and texts you random thinking of you messages. Red flags just look like flags when you're wearing rose-colored glasses, right? When we bought our house in Boulder 4 years ago, a gorgeous 3-bedroom craftsman in Newlands with mountain views, Dad generously offered to cover the down payment, $180,000. At the time, I thought it was sweet. Patriarchal, sure, but sweet. Dad being Dad, taking care of his little girl. Around the same time, for Beckett's 30th birthday, Dad bought him a Tesla Model Y, $65,000 of electric luxury. I remember Beckett's face lighting up like Christmas morning, hugging my father, calling him the best father-in-law in Colorado. Dad just smiled that tight smile he does when he's thinking something he won't say out loud. 6 months after that, Beckett pitched his revolutionary consulting business idea to my father over steaks at Flagstaff House. Something about synergistic optimization frameworks. I tuned out after the third buzzword. Dad invested $120,000 as seed capital, called it supporting family. Total gifts from Dad to Beckett, $365,000. Except here's the thing about my father. Victor didn't build a $50 million company by being generous. He built it by being strategic, paranoid, and pathologically thorough. Those weren't gifts. They were a trap. When I walked into my parents' house that Tuesday afternoon, Dad was sitting in his study with Mr. Sterling Rhodes, the family attorney who's been handling our legal affairs since before I was born. Sterling's one of those lawyers who wears bow ties unironically and carries a leather briefcase that probably costs more than my car. "Sit down, honey," Dad said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. I sat. Sterling opened his briefcase. I swear to God it had that satisfying leather and paper smell you only get in legal offices and old libraries, and pulled out a manila folder thick enough to hurt someone if you threw it. "Blythe," Dad started, folding his hands on the desk like he was about to deliver a sermon. "Do you remember when Beckett and I had that meeting before the wedding? The one about financial planning?" I nodded. Beckett had come home that day looking pale, said Dad wanted to discuss some paperwork. I'd assumed it was prenup stuff, which we never did because I didn't have significant assets worth protecting. Turns out I was wrong about what was being protected. Sterling slid the folder across the desk. Inside were 3 separate loan agreements, each one signed by Beckett in that overly flourished signature he does because he thinks it makes him look important. Agreement 1. House down payment, $180,000, structured as a conditional loan. Repayment triggered by verified marital misconduct within the first 10 years of marriage. Agreement 2. Tesla Model Y, $65,000, same conditions. Agreement 3. Business investment, $120,000, same conditions. Each agreement specified 8% annual interest compounding from the date of signing. Each one defined marital misconduct with the kind of legal precision that made my stomach drop. Extramarital physical or emotional relationships, dishonesty regarding fidelity, or actions constituting grounds for at-fault divorce under Colorado law. "Dad," I said slowly, my brain trying to catch up with what I was seeing. "You made my husband sign loan agreements?" "I made your husband agree to basic human decency with financial consequences," Dad corrected. And he agreed. Eagerly, actually. Signed all three without even bringing them to a lawyer. You know why? I knew why. Because Beckett wanted the money, wanted the house, the car, the lifestyle, the appearance of success. And Dad knew it. Sterling cleared his throat. "Blythe, the reason we've called you here is because the conditions of these agreements have been met." He pulled out another document. This one had photos. Photos of Beckett entering a hotel in Denver, the Crawford Hotel, judging by the distinctive Union Station architecture. Date stamp, 3 weeks ago, 2:37 p.m. on a Thursday. Photos of him leaving the next morning at 6:15 a.m. Photos of him at dinner with a woman who definitely wasn't me, his hand covering hers across the table at Rioja. The woman was Blair, his Pilates instructor. Of course it was his Pilates instructor. Because my husband is apparently starring in a midlife crisis cliché despite being 34. "How long have you known?" I asked quietly. 2 months, Dad said. "Beckett's been using the corporate credit card I gave him for business networking expenses. I monitor every transaction, sweetheart. Every single one. When I saw hotel charges and romantic dinners in Denver on days he told you he was in meetings, I had Sterling hire an investigator." Sterling pulled out more papers. Credit card statements highlighted in yellow. Hotel receipt, $340 per night. Dinner receipt, $215 for two at a restaurant I've been wanting to try for years. And my personal favorite, a flower delivery to Blair's address in Denver, signed, "Yours B." "The total amount owed," Sterling said in his calm attorney voice, "is $365,000 in principal, plus $117,000 in accumulated interest. $482,000. Payable within 30 days of notification or subject to immediate legal action, wage garnishment, and asset seizure." I sat there, holding these documents, looking at photos of my husband with another woman, and the weirdest thought crossed my mind. I was right about the yoga pants. I'd bought new Lululemon leggings last month, and Beckett said they were an unnecessary expense. Turns out he was saving money for hotel rooms with Blair. "What happens now?" I asked. Dad leaned back in his chair, that tight smile returning. "Now, honey, we give Beckett exactly what he signed up for. Sterling has prepared the demand letter. We serve him tomorrow. He has 30 days to pay $482,000 or face legal consequences that will follow him for the next decade." "He doesn't have that kind of money," I said. "I know," Dad replied. "Which means he'll have to sell the Tesla, liquidate the business, and probably still owe us about $200,000. But here's the beautiful part. All those gifts were in his name only. You're not liable for any of it." I looked at Sterling. "This is completely legal?" "Airtight," he confirmed. "I've been doing this for 37 years. These documents would hold up in any court in America." Sitting in my father's study, looking at evidence of my husband's betrayal and the elaborate financial trap Dad had built 4 years in advance, I realized something. I'd underestimated both men in my life. Beckett, because I thought he had more integrity than this, and Dad, because I thought his paranoia was just overprotective father syndrome. Turns out Dad wasn't being paranoid. He was being prepared. "There's one more thing," Dad said, sliding a business card across the desk. "This is Rebecca Chang, best divorce attorney in Colorado, based in Denver, but she handles high-profile cases statewide. I've already put her on retainer. She can meet you as early as tomorrow if you want it." I took the card, looked at the photos again, thought about 4 years of Sunday brunches and couples yoga and coordinated Halloween costumes, thought about Blair, probably thinking she'd scored some successful entrepreneur with money and a Tesla. "Dad," I said finally, "I need you to do something for me. Anything, honey. Don't serve him tomorrow. Give me 1 week. I have an idea." Dad and Sterling exchanged glances. "What kind of idea?" Dad asked carefully. I smiled. Probably looked exactly like Dad's tight smile. The kind that requires a therapist, a marriage counselor's office, and an audience. The week between discovering my husband was a cheating, debt-owing disaster, and executing my plan was possibly the most surreal 7 days of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal while knowing Beckett owed my father nearly $500,000 and was sleeping with a woman named Blair, who probably spelled enlightenment with a Y. Monday morning, Beckett kissed me goodbye before heading to the office, which I now knew was code for wherever I can pretend to work while actually planning my next rendezvous. He was wearing the Patagonia vest I'd given him for Christmas, looking every bit the Boulder startup bro who thinks kombucha is a personality trait. "Don't forget," he said, grabbing his keys to the Tesla that technically belonged to my father. "We have Dr. Martinez on Friday at 2. Our couples therapy session." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, sipping my coffee and thinking about how Sterling was going to walk in halfway through with a briefcase full of legal destruction. Beckett had insisted we start couples therapy 2 months ago. 2 months ago, right when Dad discovered the affair. The timing was almost poetic, Beckett suggesting we work on communication while actively lying about everything. Dr. Martinez probably thought we had normal marriage problems, like arguing about whose turn it was to load the dishwasher. She had no idea she was about to witness what I was now calling Operation Therapy Bomb. Tuesday, Beckett came home late. Again. "Client dinner in Denver," he explained, loosening his tie. The same tie I'd straightened that morning, back when I was a trusting wife instead of a vengeful one plotting his financial ruin. "How was it?" I asked, loading the dishwasher because apparently that was still my job. "Productive. Really productive. I think we're close to closing the deal." The only thing Beckett was close to closing was his checking account after Dad seized everything. But I just smiled and nodded, playing the supportive wife role I'd perfected over 4 years. Wednesday, I had lunch with my mother at the kitchen. Mom's the kind of woman who wears statement necklaces to yoga and knows everyone's business before they do. She'd been suspiciously quiet about the whole situation, which meant Dad had told her everything and sworn her to secrecy. "How are you holding up, honey?" she asked, cutting her grain bowl into precise bites. "I'm fine," I said. "Surprisingly fine, actually. Your father showed me the photos," Mom said quietly. "I wanted to drive to Denver and slash her tires myself. This is why I love my mother. She's a corporate attorney who mediates million-dollar disputes, but suggests someone hurt her daughter, and she's ready to commit misdemeanor property damage. Dad's handling it," I assured her. "Legally, very legally." Mom smiled that same tight smile Dad does. I come from a long line of people who smile when they're plotting revenge. Thursday evening, Beckett suggested we go to dinner at Frasca, our anniversary restaurant. We'd celebrated there every year since we got married. The irony of him taking me to our special place while owing my father a small fortune and cheating with Blair was almost too much. Over $12 burrata and $40 pasta, Beckett held my hand across the table. "I know I've been distant lately," he said, doing that thing where he looks into your eyes like he's in a Nicholas Sparks movie. "Work's been crazy, but I want you to know I love you. I'm committed to us, to our future. Our future." The one where he was about to be served with a debt notice for nearly $500,000. I squeezed his hand back. "I love you too." The lie tasted like expensive pasta and impending divorce. Friday morning, I woke up buzzing with anticipatory energy. It was like Christmas morning, except instead of presents I was getting legal justice and vindication. I put on my favorite dress, the blue one Beckett said made me look too intimidating, and actually did my makeup. If I was going to watch my husband's world implode, I was going to look good doing it. Beckett was weirdly nervous at breakfast. "You sure you want to do therapy today?" he asked, pushing his organic granola around the bowl. "We could reschedule." "Why would we reschedule?" I asked innocently. "You said we needed to work on communication." "Right. Yeah. Communication." He looked pale. Maybe his conscience was finally waking up, 4 months late and $500,000 short. We drove separately to Dr. Martinez's office in downtown Boulder. Beckett in the Tesla he was about to lose, me in my paid-off Honda CR-V that suddenly seemed very sensible. The therapy office was in one of those converted Victorian houses that Boulder loves, all exposed brick and succulents in the waiting room. Dr. Martinez greeted us with her usual warm smile. She was in her 50s, kind-faced, probably thinking this was going to be another session of mild marital disagreements. Poor woman had no idea she was about to earn her entire fee in trauma. "Blythe, Beckett, come in. How have you both been this week?" We settled onto the couch. The same couch where we'd spent 3 sessions talking about feeling heard and emotional availability. Beckett immediately launched into his prepared speech about wanting to reconnect and prioritize us. I checked my phone. 2:14 p.m. Sterling was late. Dr. Martinez was nodding along, taking notes, probably writing something like, "husband showing engagement," in her therapy shorthand. If only she knew the only thing Beckett was engaged with was a Pilates instructor in Denver. "Blythe," Dr. Martinez said gently, "you've been quiet. How are you feeling about what Beckett's sharing?" "I'm feeling—" The door opened. Sterling Rhodes walked in, briefcase in hand, bow tie perfectly straight, looking exactly like what he was. An attorney about to ruin someone's day. Beckett's face went from confused to pale to absolutely terrified in about 3 seconds. It was beautiful. "I'm sorry," Dr. Martinez said, standing up. "Sir, this is a private session." "It's okay," I interrupted. "I asked him to come." Dr. Martinez looked at me, then at Sterling, processing this new information. Her expression shifted from confused to concerned, to resigned in about 5 seconds. Sterling Rhodes, attorney. He introduced himself calmly, pulling out his business card. "I apologize for the interruption, Dr. Martinez, but I have time-sensitive legal documents that require Mr. Beckett's immediate attention." Beckett looked at me, then at Sterling, then back at me. "Blythe, what's happening?" "Communication," I said sweetly. "Isn't that what we're here for?" Sterling opened his briefcase, that same satisfying leather smell filling the small office, and pulled out the folder, the thick one, the one containing 4 years of financial transactions, loan agreements signed in Beckett's confident scrawl, and photographs of him entering hotels with a woman who wasn't his wife. "Mr. Beckett," Sterling said in that calm attorney voice that somehow sounds worse than yelling, "you are hereby notified that 3 conditional loan agreements signed between yourself and Victor Ashford on the following dates have been triggered due to verified breach of marital fidelity clauses." He laid out the papers on Dr. Martinez's coffee table like he was dealing cards. Loan Agreement 1, Loan Agreement 2, Loan Agreement 3, then the photos. Beckett stared at them. Dr. Martinez stared at them. I sipped my water and waited. "The total amount owed is $482,000, payable within 30 days of this notification," Sterling continued. "Failure to pay will result in immediate legal action, asset seizure, wage garnishment, and—" "Wait," Beckett interrupted, his voice cracking. "Blythe, you knew about this." "I found out on Tuesday," I said calmly. "You know, the day you came home late from your client dinner in Denver? The same Denver where Blair lives?" Dr. Martinez was looking between us like she'd stumbled into a reality TV show. "I think we need to pause." "We're done pausing," I said, standing up. "We're done pretending. We're done with this marriage." Beckett's face had gone from pale to red. "Your father tricked me. Those documents, I didn't know." "You signed them," Sterling interrupted, "with full disclosure of terms. Would you like me to read the section where you acknowledged understanding all conditions?" "This is insane." Beckett stood up, knocking over his water bottle. "You can't do this." "We can," I said. "We are. You have 30 days to pay nearly $500,000. I suggest you start by selling the Tesla, then liquidate your business, then maybe get a real job." The look on his face, that moment when someone realizes they've been outplayed, outmaneuvered, and thoroughly destroyed by people they underestimated, was worth every awkward Sunday brunch, every fake smile, every lie I'd swallowed for 4 years. "Blythe," Dr. Martinez said quietly, "I think we should—" "I'm done," I said, grabbing my purse. "I'm filing for divorce. You'll be served next week." I walked out of that therapy office feeling lighter than I had in months. Behind me, I could hear Beckett starting to panic, his voice rising, Sterling's calm responses, Dr. Martinez probably already planning early retirement. Outside, Dad was waiting in his truck, grinning like he'd just won the Super Bowl. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Perfect," I said. "Absolutely perfect." "Good," he replied, handing me an envelope. "Because here's phase 2. The envelope Dad handed me contained a flash drive and a post-it note in his handwriting. "You're going to want to see this. Dad." I waited until I got home, to the house that was about to become just mine, before plugging it into my laptop. Beckett was still at Dr. Martinez's office, probably crying to Sterling about how unfair life was. Or maybe he'd already called Blair to tell her his sugar daddy situation had just evaporated. Either way, I had the house to myself, and a flash drive full of what I assumed was more evidence of my husband's stupidity. I was wrong. It was evidence of his criminality. The flash drive contained a forensic accounting report prepared by someone named Marcus Webb, CPA. Apparently, when Dad got suspicious about Beckett's affair, he didn't just hire a private investigator to follow him around Denver. He hired a forensic accountant to examine Beckett's business. And, oh, what Marcus Webb found. Beckett's startup consultancy, Elevate Strategic Solutions, because of course that's what he called it, had 17 clients over the past 3 years. 17 small businesses who'd paid Beckett between $8,000 and $15,000 each for comprehensive strategic consulting packages. Total revenue, approximately $194,000. Deliverables provided, virtually nothing. I'm not talking about subpar work. I'm talking about Beckett literally taking money, sending a few generic emails with buzzwords, maybe having 1 or 2 meetings, then ghosting his clients completely. No reports, no strategies, no solutions, elevated or otherwise. He was running what Marcus Webb's report politely called a service-based fraud scheme. The report included email exchanges Marcus had obtained, legally, Dad assured me later, showing clients asking for updates, deliverables, refunds. Beckett's responses were masterclasses in manipulation. Your account is being prioritized. The strategic framework is in final review. Processing your customized deliverables. Translation: I spent your money on hotel rooms in Denver and I'm stalling. 3 clients had already threatened legal action. 2 had filed complaints with the Better Business Bureau. 1 had actually consulted an attorney about filing charges. Beckett had been putting out fires for months, promising refunds he couldn't deliver because he'd spent the money maintaining his lifestyle and his affair. The business Dad had invested $120,000 in? It wasn't just failing. It was a fraud operation waiting to explode. I sat at my kitchen table, the reclaimed wood one from that boutique in Boulder that cost $3,000 and suddenly seemed very symbolic, reading through 147 pages of financial malfeasance. My husband wasn't just a cheater. He was effectively a con artist who happened to have a marriage license. My phone buzzed. Text from Mom. Your father told me to tell you to check page 73 specifically. Page 73 was a bank statement from Beckett's business account. It showed a transfer of $12,000 to an account belonging to Blair Sutton on March 15th. The memo line read, "Investment opportunity." He gave his mistress $12,000 of his client's money. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud in my empty house. The audacity. The absolute audacity of this man to steal from clients, give the money to his Pilates instructor girlfriend, while living in a house my father paid for and driving a car my father bought. My phone rang. Rebecca Chang, the divorce attorney Dad had put on retainer. "Blythe," she said in that brisk, efficient voice that made me understand why she was the best in Colorado. "I've reviewed the materials your father sent over. We need to meet. Your father mentioned Wednesday, but I'm thinking you might want to wait until after the therapy session plays out. How about Saturday morning, 9 a.m., my office?" "Saturday works," I said, understanding immediately. She was right. I needed to see the therapy ambush through first, let Beckett panic for a day, then come to her with the full picture. "Perfect," Rebecca said, "and bring that flash drive." "What are you thinking?" I asked. "I'm thinking your husband is facing significantly more problems than a divorce," Rebecca replied. "I'm thinking we can leverage this into the cleanest, fastest, most favorable divorce settlement you've ever seen. He signs everything over, accepts full responsibility, and in exchange, we don't notify his clients about the forensic report. Yet. That feels like blackmail," I said. "It's negotiation," Rebecca corrected. "Blackmail is illegal. This is presenting options and consequences. Very different." "I love lawyers," I said. "You should. We're saving you years of litigation and potentially getting you everything without a fight." After we hung up, I did what any reasonable woman would do when discovering her husband was both a cheater and a fraud. I investigated the mistress. Blair Sutton's Instagram was public. Because of course it was. Her bio read, Pilates instructor, wellness advocate, living my best life. Her photos were the usual influencer fare. Green smoothies, sunset yoga poses, motivational quotes about choosing yourself. And there, buried in her posts from February, was a Valentine's Day photo. Blair and some guy named Trevor, based on the tags. The caption, 4 years with my favorite human. Here's to forever. 4 years. Blair had a boyfriend of 4 years while sleeping with my husband, which meant either Trevor didn't know about Beckett, or this was some kind of polyamorous situation nobody had disclosed. Either way, I was fairly certain Trevor didn't know his girlfriend had received $12,000 from a married man. I took screenshots. Lots of screenshots. Then I went deeper. Trevor's Instagram showed he was a high school teacher in Denver, posted about his students, his running club, his amazing girlfriend Blair. Recent posts complained about money being tight, about student loans, about wanting to take Blair on a real vacation, but needing to save up. Meanwhile, Blair was receiving $12,000 investments from my husband and posting photos of her new Lululemon collection. The petty part of me, which was becoming less petty and more justified by the minute, wanted to message Trevor immediately. But the smart part of me, the part that inherited Dad's strategic patience, knew timing mattered. Saturday morning, I met Rebecca at her office in a downtown Denver high-rise, with the kind of view that reminded you good lawyers weren't cheap. She was 50-ish, impeccably dressed, with the kind of sharp eyes that probably saw through every lie told in her presence. Here's what we're going to do, Rebecca said, spreading documents across her conference table like a general planning a campaign. We file for divorce on Monday. Simultaneously, we present Beckett with a settlement offer. He signs over the house, all shared assets, takes full responsibility for the debt to your father, and agrees to a complete financial separation with no spousal support requests. In exchange, we don't refer the forensic accounting report to the district attorney or notify his clients. Can we do that? I asked. Legally? We're not obligated to report civil fraud to authorities, Rebecca explained. We're simply choosing not to, yet. If he contests the divorce or makes any financial claims against you, then we reconsider. It's motivation, not coercion. What about the clients he defrauded? That's where this gets interesting, Rebecca said, pulling out another document. Your father's already contacted 3 of the clients who threatened legal action. Offered to make them whole, pay back what Beckett took, in exchange for signed statements detailing their experiences with Elevate Strategic Solutions. Why would Dad do that? Because, Rebecca smiled, those statements become evidence in the divorce proceedings that Beckett defrauded clients during your marriage, which strengthens our case for you having no responsibility for any of his business debts. And it ensures those clients won't sue Beckett into bankruptcy before your divorce is finalized. Your father is securing your financial position. I stared at her. My dad is terrifying. Your dad is strategic. There's a difference. We spent 2 hours going through every detail. The house would be mine. Once Beckett's debt to Dad was settled, Dad would sign over his lien. The Honda was already in my name. My retirement accounts were separate. The only shared asset was the checking account, which had about $12,000 that we'd split. What about the Tesla? I asked. Technically your father's property securing the loan, Rebecca said. He'll repossess it when Beckett defaults on the 30-day payment deadline. Which he will, because there's no way he's finding $500,000. And his business? Will be liquidated to cover debts. Based on Marcus Webb's assessment, it has maybe $20,000 in actual assets. Computer equipment, office furniture. Won't even make a dent in what he owes. I left Rebecca's office feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Powerful. Not angry, not sad, not betrayed. Powerful. For 4 years, I'd played the supportive wife, the understanding partner, the woman who made her husband's life easier. I'd shrunk myself to make room for his ego and his ambitions and his lies. Now I was about to take everything. Sunday afternoon, I did something beautifully petty. I created a burner Instagram account and messaged Blair. Hi Blair, you don't know me, but I think we should talk about Beckett. Call me. I included my number. She called within 20 minutes. Who is this? Blair's voice was younger than I expected. Mid-20s, maybe. I'm Beckett's wife, I said pleasantly. Blythe? We should probably compare notes. The silence was magnificent. I didn't know, she started. That he was married? His ring didn't give it away? Or did he tell you some story about us being separated? He said you were getting divorced, Blair said quietly. He said it was almost final. Weird, I replied, because I just filed for divorce on Friday. After discovering he owes my father nearly $500,000. And after finding out he gave you $12,000 that he stole from his clients. That money you received? That was fraud money, Blair. You're technically in possession of stolen funds. Another beautiful silence. I didn't know, she whispered. Here's what you need to know now, I said, my voice steel wrapped in politeness. Beckett is broke. Completely broke. He's losing everything. The Tesla, the business, probably his freedom if enough clients press charges. Whatever he told you about being a successful consultant? Lies. Whatever future you thought you had? Gone. I'd suggest you tell Trevor before he finds out another way. And maybe return that $12,000 before someone asks where it came from. I hung up before she could respond. Monday morning, Beckett was served with divorce papers at the house. By Monday afternoon, Rebecca had sent him the settlement offer. By Monday evening, my phone was full of texts from him, ranging from angry to desperate to pathetic. I didn't respond to any of them. Tuesday, Rebecca called. He wants to meet. With you. Says he'll sign everything if you'll just talk to him. Tell him we can meet at your office, Thursday at 10, and tell him to bring a pen. Thursday morning arrived like Christmas morning for people who enjoy watching karma work overtime. I dressed in my best power suit, the one I'd bought for job interviews years ago and never had occasion to wear because I'd made myself smaller to fit into Beckett's life. It fit perfectly now. Rebecca's office was on the 15th floor, with views of the Rockies that probably cost more per square foot than most people's mortgages. Beckett was already there when I arrived, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Good. He was wearing jeans and a wrinkled button-down. No Tesla vest, no confident swagger. Just a 34-year-old man finally understanding that actions have consequences, and his wife's father had been playing chess while he was playing checkers. Blythe, he started when I walked in. I held up one hand. Don't. Rebecca gestured to the conference table where she'd laid out the settlement agreement like a surgeon preparing instruments. Sterling Rhodes sat in the corner. Dad had sent him as backup, which I appreciated. Nothing says you're outnumbered like two attorneys in one room. Mr. Beckett? Rebecca began in that crisp voice that brooked no argument. My client is prepared to offer you the following settlement terms. I suggest you listen carefully because this offer expires the moment you leave this office. She walked him through it point by point. Blythe gets the house. Blythe gets all furnishings. Blythe keeps her retirement accounts and personal assets. They split the checking account 50-50. Beckett assumes full responsibility for the $482,000 debt to Victor. No spousal support requests from either party. Divorce finalized within 60 days. In exchange, Rebecca continued, we will not refer the forensic accounting report documenting your business practices to the Colorado District Attorney's Office. We will not notify your remaining clients of the findings. And we will not pursue additional claims against assets you may acquire in the future. Beckett stared at the papers. This is blackmail. This is negotiation, Rebecca corrected. Blackmail implies we're asking for something we're not entitled to. My client is entitled to a divorce and a fair division of assets. We're simply agreeing not to pursue legal avenues we're under no obligation to pursue. You're free to reject this offer and proceed with contested litigation. Of course, in that case, we'd need to introduce the forensic report as evidence of financial malfeasance during the marriage, which would likely trigger criminal investigations. The beautiful thing about watching someone realize they've been completely outmaneuvered is the progression of emotions. Denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance. Beckett went through all four in about 90 seconds. What about my business? He asked weakly. Your business, Sterling interjected from his corner, is being liquidated to satisfy debts to Mr. Ashford. The computer equipment, furniture, and remaining assets will be sold. The proceeds will be applied to your outstanding balance. You'll still owe approximately $460,000. I don't have that kind of money. We know, I said. which is why we've arranged a payment plan. 20 years, 8% interest, monthly payments of approximately $4,000. Your father already agreed to co-sign. That was my contribution to the plan. When I'd discovered Beckett's father, a retired dentist in Wisconsin who'd always treated me kindly, I'd felt guilty. But Dad had tracked him down, explained the situation, and turns out Mr. Beckett Sr. was horrified by his son's behavior, mortified enough to co-sign the loan to protect his own credit, since Beckett had listed him as a reference on various documents. Beckett's face went from pale to red. "You went to my father?" "Your father went to his attorney," Sterling corrected, "when he discovered his credit was potentially at risk due to references you'd used without permission. Mr. Ashford simply provided information. Your father chose to protect his interests. And just so you're aware," Rebecca added, looking at Beckett with the kind of clinical detachment that made her worth every dollar of her fee, "your father-in-law personally reimbursed 3 of your defrauded clients, $38,000 out of his own pocket, to secure the statements we're using as evidence. He's not even adding that to what you owe him. He considered it an investment in ensuring this settlement goes smoothly and protecting his daughter's interests." Beckett's face somehow got paler. The realization that Victor had spent additional money just to make the legal case against him stronger was clearly more than his ego could handle. It was brutal, surgical, perfect. Beckett signed. Every page, every initial, every acknowledgement of fault and acceptance of terms. His hand was shaking by the time he reached the final signature line. "One more thing," I said, sliding another document across the table. "This is a quitclaim deed transferring your interest in the house to me. Once your father makes the first loan payment, my father will release his lien and the house becomes mine, free and clear." He signed that too. When it was over, Beckett just sat there, staring at the stack of papers that had just legally dismantled his life. "Can I talk to you?" he asked quietly. "Alone? Just 5 minutes?" Rebecca and Sterling looked at me. I nodded. When the attorney stepped out, Beckett finally looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in probably years. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know it doesn't matter now, but I'm sorry." "You're right," I replied. "It doesn't matter. You know what the worst part is? Not the cheating, not even the fraud. It's that you were always so convinced you were smarter than everyone else, smarter than your clients, smarter than me, smarter than my father. You thought charm could replace competence and lies could replace integrity. You never meant to get caught," I interrupted. "There's a difference." I stood up. "The Tesla gets repossessed tomorrow. My father's people will collect it from wherever you're staying. The house keys need to be returned by Saturday. You have until then to collect your personal items. Everything else stays. Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't know, Beckett. Maybe Blair has a couch. Oh, wait, I forgot to mention. Trevor knows everything. I called him Tuesday night, played him the recording of my conversation with Blair, sent him the bank statements showing the $12,000 transfer. He was very grateful for the information." The look on Beckett's face was worth every penny of Rebecca's retainer. "Trevor left her Wednesday morning," I continued. "Packed his stuff and moved in with his brother. Blair's been calling you, by the way. 47 times, according to her call log. She's confused about why her successful entrepreneur boyfriend isn't answering. Probably because she doesn't know you're about to be homeless and $460,000 in debt." I grabbed my purse. "Oh, and one more thing. Remember those 3 clients who threatened to sue? The ones my father paid back? They've written statements detailing their experiences with Elevate Strategic Solutions. Those statements are filed with the Better Business Bureau, tagged to your name. Anyone searching for Beckett Hayes Consultant will find them. Forever." I walked toward the door, then paused. "You know what's funny? If you'd just been a decent husband, you'd still have everything. The house, the car, the business, me. But you got greedy. You wanted more. Now you have nothing." The next few days were a masterclass in watching dominoes fall. Friday morning, Dad's repo team collected the Tesla from the budget motel where Beckett was staying. By Friday afternoon, Elevate Strategic Solutions officially closed. Office furniture sold, computers liquidated, business license revoked. Saturday, Beckett collected his belongings from the house. I wasn't there. I was at Mom and Dad's, drinking wine and watching him load his stuff into a U-Haul through the security camera feed on my phone. It took him 4 hours and 3 trips. When he left for the last time, I felt nothing. Not sadness, not anger, not relief. Just nothing. Sunday, Blair posted on Instagram. The post was a selfie with red eyes and a lengthy caption about learning who people really are and trusting the universe. The comments were brutal. Apparently someone, definitely not me, I would never, had tagged Trevor in the comments section, and he'd posted a very detailed explanation of why they'd broken up. The internet is unforgiving to Instagram influencers whose wellness advocate personas clash with reality. A few weeks later, I started my new job. I'd been interviewing quietly for months, and had actually accepted an offer 3 weeks before discovering Beckett's affair. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. The marketing firm in Boulder paid $68,000 a year. It wasn't CEO money, but it was mine. Earned by me, controlled by me, untouchable by anyone else. About a month after the settlement, I got a call from Sterling. The payment schedule had been finalized. Beckett's first loan payment would be due in 30 days. His father had already confirmed he'd make it, as agreed, but had added a note to the paperwork. Consider this the last bailout. Beckett was officially on his own, with 19 years and 11 months of payments ahead of him. About 2 weeks after the therapy office ambush that started everything, I sat in my house, drinking coffee and realizing I'd spent 4 years of my life with a man I'd never actually known. The man I'd married was a fiction, a character he'd played because I had something he wanted, access to my father's money. The revenge wasn't just the money or the divorce or even the social destruction. The revenge was this. Beckett spent 4 years thinking he was using me to get to my father's wealth. What he didn't realize was that every gift, every investment, every generous gesture was my father building a trap. And the moment Beckett stepped wrong, the trap snapped shut. My phone buzzed. Text from Dad. Lunch tomorrow? Want to discuss your next chapter? I smiled, because here's what I'd learned. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's transformation. Beckett lost everything. I gained everything. My house, my freedom, my power, my future. He'd spend the next 20 years paying for his mistakes. I'd spend the next 20 years building the life I actually wanted. And that's the real difference between being smart and being clever. Clever people think they're getting away with something. Smart people know exactly when someone's letting them think that. 3 months later, I had lunch with Dad at Flagstaff House, the same restaurant where Beckett had pitched his fraudulent business idea years ago. Full circle, except this time I was the one with something worth celebrating. The divorce was finalized. The house was mine, completely paid off after Dad released his lien. My new job was going well enough that I'd gotten a small raise. And Beckett? Well, Beckett was making his monthly $4,000 payment like clockwork, probably because his father was monitoring every dollar to protect his own credit. You look different, Dad said, cutting into his steak with the precision of a man who'd spent 50 years measuring twice and cutting once. I feel different, I admitted. Lighter, like I've been carrying someone else's baggage for 4 years and finally put it down. That's because you were, Mom chimed in. She joined us, wearing one of her statement necklaces that probably cost more than Beckett's monthly payment. You spent 4 years making yourself smaller so he could feel bigger. That's exhausting. She wasn't wrong. I'd molded myself into the perfect supportive wife, the one who didn't complain when he came home late, who believed his stories about client meetings, who acted impressed by his buzzword-filled explanations of his business strategy. I'd been so busy being understanding that I'd forgotten to be honest. I ran into Sterling last week, Dad said casually, which meant this information was about to be very intentionally shared. He mentioned Beckett tried to refinance the loan, wanted better terms. And? I asked, already knowing the answer. Denied, everywhere. His credit's destroyed from the business closure and the client complaints. No bank will touch him. He's stuck with the original terms for the next 19 years and 9 months. I did the math automatically. Beckett would be 54 when he made his final payment. 19 more years of consequences for 4 years of lies. The math seemed fair. How's his father handling it? I asked. According to Sterling, not well, Dad replied. Mr. Beckett Sr. is making the payments, but he's not speaking to his son. Family dinners are apparently quite awkward. There was something poetic about that. Beckett had damaged every relationship in his life chasing something that was never real to begin with. The successful entrepreneur persona, the luxury lifestyle, the image of having it all. It was a house built on sand, and the tide finally came in. "What about the girl?" Mom asked. "The Pilates instructor?" "Last I checked her Instagram. Not that I check regularly," I added quickly, though Mom's raised eyebrows suggested she didn't believe me. She moved back to her parents' house in Fort Collins, still posting motivational quotes about resilience and growth. The comments are still brutal. The internet never forgets, and Instagram influencers who get caught up in cheating scandals rarely recover their carefully curated image. Blair went from living my best life to living as a cautionary tale about trusting smooth-talking men with too many teeth. "And Trevor?" Mom pressed. "Teaching high school, coaching track, reportedly dating a math teacher from his school. Seems happy." Out of everyone in this disaster, Trevor was the only one who came out genuinely fine. He'd been collateral damage in Beckett and Blair's mess, but he'd moved on quickly. Probably helped that he'd done nothing wrong except trust the wrong person, something I could relate to. My phone buzzed. Text from Rebecca Chang. "Final paperwork filed. You're officially single. Congratulations." I showed it to my parents. Mom raised her wine glass. "To freedom, justice, and fathers who plan ahead." We toasted. Looking out at the mountain views from Flagstaff House, I realized something that took me 3 months to fully understand. This wasn't a story about revenge. Revenge implies you've lowered yourself to someone else's level. This was a story about consequences finally meeting actions, facilitated by a father who understood that trust isn't given freely. It's earned, monitored, and backed by legal documentation. Dad didn't trap Beckett. Beckett trapped himself the moment he signed those agreements thinking he'd never get caught. Every lie he told, every client he defrauded, every hotel room with Blair, those were choices. The consequences were just math. "What's next for you?" Dad asked as we finished lunch. "Honestly, I don't know," I said. "Maybe travel, maybe focus on work, maybe adopt a dog and become one of those women whose entire personality revolves around their golden retriever. The possibilities are endless. That's the difference between being trapped and being free," Mom observed. "When you're trapped, your future is predetermined. When you're free, it's full of possibilities." I thought about Beckett, locked into 19 more years of payments, his name permanently attached to fraud complaints, his relationships destroyed, his father barely speaking to him. His future was very predetermined. Meanwhile, I was 31, debt-free, owned my house, had a decent job, and the only person I needed to answer to was myself. That afternoon, I drove home to my house in Newlands, the house I'd lived in for 4 years, but only truly owned for 3 months. I'd redecorated the living room, finally hung the art I'd wanted, but Beckett said was too bold, and converted his office into a reading room with a chair that cost an obscene amount of money and was worth every penny. The house felt different now. Lighter, brighter, mine. I made coffee in the kitchen where I'd once read forensic accounting reports detailing my husband's fraud, sat on the porch where I'd planned the therapy office ambush, looked at the mountains that had witnessed my entire transformation from supportive wife to strategic victor. Someone once told me the best revenge is living well. They were wrong. The best revenge is living well, while the person who wronged you lives with permanent consequences. It's not about being petty, though that's a nice bonus. It's about justice. Real, mathematical, legally binding justice. My father taught me that the long game beats the short con every time. That paranoia is just preparation in disguise. That trust without documentation is just faith, and faith doesn't hold up in court. But the most important lesson? Sometimes the person underestimating you is the biggest advantage you could ask for. Beckett thought he was playing me. Turns out he was auditioning for a role in a play my father wrote years in advance. And the final curtain? That was always going to fall on him. So here's to fathers who plan ahead, attorneys who don't play, and women who stop making themselves smaller to accommodate men who were never that big to begin with. And to Beckett, wherever he is, probably in a budget apartment calculating his next payment, thanks for the house.